Amigas. I hope you're all doing well. I just had a really enjoyable conversation with Laura from Coastal Range Co. She told me about her experience as a foil surfer. Maybe you have seen foil surfing. I know I thought that it was probably way too dangerous and too hard to learn. She gives a different perspective. We talk about her over decade long experience working for Patagonia and the ways that she was involved in helping create sustainable, fair trade certified women's sportswear and swimwear, and what she learned from that project, as well as how she was inspired to start her own swimwear brand. She also explains why the Roti location on the Surf with Amigas calendar is her favorite and why you absolutely need to go check it out. I hope you enjoy the episode, and I hope you're getting some fun waves wherever you are in the world right now. Where are you in the world, and did you surf today?
Okay, so I am in Ventura, California, and I have not surfed yet, but the plan is if the wind doesn't get up too big, I won't surf. I'll go foiling. I'm practicing prone foiling. So,
Prone foiling? What does that mean?
well, there's all different disciplines, but prone is the one that would be look most like surfing, where you start on the foil board, you paddle into a wave, and then pop up. And I've gotten the standing up. Now I'm learning to pump down the line once I'm up.
Okay, so I think when you said prone, I was imagining that you were gonna be riding it prone, but you just mean that you start by
hmm
paddling.
Yeah, so
Okay.
in the foil world, that is like the one that looks most like surfing. Yeah, where you start laying down and then you pop up.
So in the foil world, is there one way that's cooler than another way? Like as a surfer, the way that you're describing feels like the most awesome, like the coolest,
Yeah.
but the foil world is a different world that maybe only has some crossover into surfing. So is there like if you're a foiler then but not a surfer, is there one that's cooler than the others?
No, that's the interesting thing about foiling. I feel like it's really open to any discipline, and because there's so few foilers and they're just like, "Anybody come do whatever you can do," and we're all learning it because it's such a new sport with a lot of different disciplines. I think the one that is, I guess, like the hardest that like you've mastered something is called downwinding, and that's when you see those people, a lot of videos come from Hawaii where they're riding the swells that are way out to sea and it's the wind swells in the water. And that is, I think, the hardest discipline to learn is my understanding, the downwinding and then the parawinging. And I'm not even close there.
How did you get into that?
So way back in 2020, this is the funny story about you and I. Um, right before COVID, I actually looked today. I sent you the first email asking about a retreat, and it was before the world had shut down. It was in January of 2020, and I was asking about my level. And in 2020, kind of my husband set a goal to learn to foil, and I set a goal to learn to get barrel, which has not happened yet. And anyway, during COVID, when everything shut down, I couldn't take my Surf with Amigas retreat for a couple of years. But he was like way out of work and started learning to foil. So I still was working full time. And it wasn't until my job ended in 2024, I was like, well, now I have time to learn to foil because it's, well, I would say a lot harder learning curve than surfing. And so I kind of made up in my mind right now that one day I'll learn to foil and I'll get barreled and my business will succeed. All those things are going to come together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've seen the foilers. I watch them out there, and I think that it looks really cool. It also looks like an incredible lower body workout, just like the
The
hopping that.
pumping. Yeah.
But for you, what is the draw?
Okay. So with foiling, I get 45 minutes of straight ride time during a session. If you look at my dawn patrol when I'm surfing, my time on the board, good surf day, 5 to 10 minutes. Let's say I'm on a Surf with Amigas retreat and I'm catching a lot of waves and there's a big swell. It's still like 20 minutes on a board. My 1 hour session of foiling, 45 minutes is on a board. So m- my pop-up's always been really hard for me and something that I work on every time with Surf with Amigas. But my carving has improved so much with foiling because I have so much ride time. So for me, it's that feeling of flying and the amount of ride time. And also because I can go so much further outside than surfers, I can be somewhat alone and in my own, like, space without having to fight for waves. So there's a draw that yeah, it just brings me a lot of happiness, I guess.
That's cool. Well, it's funny. I was trying to clear out some space on my hard drive and I was going through like downloads and trying to like, what is this? And deleting them, all the videos that you just
Yeah.
randomly loaded there in your downloads folder. And as I was going through that, one of the videos that I found was actually a video that you had sent me of you in Indonesia. And I was like, oh, how funny. I'm going to talk to her today. And like, here's this video. And so I remembered that we had worked on your pop up. But I would think, like, I maybe have these misconceptions about foiling because I think I see foiling as something that is harder than surfing, I guess, and particularly when you're talking about, the timing and finesse of something like the pop-up, like, I would see foiling as being more of a challenge. So, you acknowledge that your pop-up is something that you continue to work on. Is it easier somehow in the foil, or are you able to overcome it, or, like, talk about that?
Yeah, so with foiling, the way I learned to foil, so I told you already, my husband started in 2020 and he became really proficient, became downwinder, and is really involved in the foil community. So in I guess it was January 2024, we decided to get a foil drive. That's the foil with the motor on the back because that's an easier way to learn. So with the foil drive, the way you start it is I'm on my knees and I get the motor going and then I stand up. So I can be as slow as I want to be. So now that I'm transitioning to the prone, which does require the pop-up, that is actually the best thing for my surfing pop-up because it does force me to be really fast at it. And, I can see the improvement coming by being forced to be faster at the foiling one. So it's coming hand in hand. I will say foiling is far harder to learn than surfing, but then I think once you start progressing, it goes faster than surfing.
Okay, interesting. But
Yeah.
probably because you don't have to wait for the wave to get that
Yeah,
repetition.
exactly. Yeah, and you'll see, like, with the foil drive, not everyone has access to it because it's financially a really expensive investment to get into it, and the equipment changes all the time. So I feel like it's kinda closed off from a lot of people. We just eat a lot of beans and rice to afford the foil habit. We don't have a lot of disposable income for it, and we buy a lot of used hand-me-downs from people. But, getting into it and knowing what gear to buy is really hard, and so I had the benefit of having someone who decided to learn it so early on that helps me.
Yeah, I imagine that quite a few people get excited about it, think it looks really cool, buy the gear, realize how hard it is, and I had an ex that actually had a foil board that we were together for, like, 3 years. I never once saw him use it. He's like, "Yeah, I got it. I thought it'd be really cool, but it's actually really hard," and then eventually he probably sold it, or maybe he still has it. It's still in his, like, garage.
Yeah, to be honest, like, I it is so hard and humbling compared with, like I feel like if you take a surf lesson on a foam board, you can be standing up sometimes going straight and whitewash for the first day. I didn't stand up for months. It's so embarrassing, but it's so humbling, and something about something being so hard and a sport that makes you kinda wanna cry and cuss that when you finally get it, the overwhelming joy is almost like you wanna have tears and you're like, "Did everyone see me do it? Is everyone paying attention? Did y'all see this?" And, of course, it looked horrible, but it's anyway, it's been really cool to learn something so hard.
I love that attitude that, like, I'm gonna keep at this until I am successful, but there is actually a lot of risk. I mean, you're basically surfing on a thing that could, like, chop your arm off. Like, am I overblowing that? Or, like, how dangerous is it actually? How many times has the thing hit you?
Okay, for me, I have hit my leg once and hit my mouth and cut my which was, due to me falling bad, not the foil. That is my only 2 energy injuries, but I feel like the risks, the it is in some ways bigger if you get hit. Not being said, I, don't feel so scared about it 75% of the time. Now that you have to learn how to fall and you have to learn how to manage your gear. And so those days, like when I was saying that I wasn't standing up, you're learning how to manage the gear. You're learning how to fall correctly. I've never been in big swell with a foil. I'm sure that changes the game entirely. But I'm always on small waves and I'm far away from anyone. And I do wear a leash, so it's just like you fall off, and just like with surfing, cover your head. And I try to make sure I feel the board tug, wherever the current's pulling it away from me before I pop up. Um, but it looks more scary than it feels once you start doing it.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's Well, I mean, I want to hear a little bit about like you as a person. Like, where did you grow up and how did you initially get into surfing?
Great. Yeah, I grew up at the beach, Charleston, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I spent all my summers at the beach. My mother, my aunts, my cousins, we spent days and days, from the month of June till the end of August at the beach, 6 days a week, just, putting baby oil on and playing mermaids. Never once surfed. That was like, I was in South Carolina. The only time there was swell, we got out of there because it was a hurricane. But I spent a lot of time on surf mats. I didn't know they were called that at the time, riding whitewash, and have always been an ocean person. How I got into surfing is I got a job with Patagonia in 2012, and I actually was a rock climber. And prior to being at Patagonia, I'd been in Austin, Texas, and worked in the outdoor industry. And I was mountain biking, adventure racing, rock climbing, doing kind of all the outdoor sports. But what drew me to apply for the job at Patagonia is I had to live at the beach. I had kids. They were 3 and 5. And I was like, I cannot imagine raising my kids landlocked. And Austin, Texas is a wonderful city aside from being landlocked, in my opinion. And I just had to find some way to get back to the ocean with no intention. Surfing was never even on the plan in my life. Just being at the ocean and being in the water was in my mind. And came to Patagonia. They hired me to like run the entire women's life outdoor, which is kind of everything not built for sports. So it's like all the fleece that everyone wears and the water shorts and hiking clothes and any rainwear that's like for city use. And they also put me on women's surf apparel, which is swimwear, board shorts, and kind of some of the sun layers for women. And when I got the job on the team, I didn't know how to surf. And so there was like some controversy because at Patagonia, I mean, they really want people to authentically do the sport that they run. So I had a bee in my bonnet that I was going to learn to surf no matter what. And I was going to surf the most of any girl in the office because I had heard like some of the side talks about like, well, she doesn't even surf. Was she on the surf team? Which, fair enough. Now that I live it and do it, I'm like, fair enough. You should know something. And so I just kept going out there in the water. I got a big long board and had no idea what I was doing and should have taken a lesson and didn't. And really sealed some bad habits from trying to teach myself for like 5 years. And I think I had been surfing for 5 years and it's like, Holly, maybe I need a lesson. But that's how I got into surfing, was working for Patagonia. And then they sent us on some really amazing offsites to build product, to field test product. I got to work with incredible athletes that did all types of water women disciplines.
Was that in the era of I'm trying to think of who the women were because this was like kind of my generation of surfers, like maybe Liz Clark or
Um, So my athletes at the time, the ones that were kind of the most recognizable, Liz Clark, Crystal Homasi, she is in Hawaii, longboarder, beautiful surfer. Kimmy Swimmy, and she is amazing water woman, spear fisherman. Um, let's see, Belinda Baggs. I got to go on an incredible offsite. My first Indonesia trip was actually a Jerry Lopez repeat treat with Belinda Baggs. Um, who else was on the team? Muna White, she was more of the kite, and now she is like full on foil. And Paige Alms, she's a big wave surfer. And, these women took me under their wing because my first offsite, I think I went to Hawaii to the North Shore, and I remember someone whispering in my ear, "You put your fins in backwards. You don't
oh
paddle."
no.
And I'm like representing women's surf for Patagonia. And I was like, okay. I learned the hard way on everything, and then the first day I paddled out, all the Hawaiians that were, like, part of the team, like I said, I tried to teach myself, and they're like, "What are you doing? There's a channel." I'm like, "What does a channel mean?" Like, "Oh my gosh." Like, "Just follow us and don't say anything."
Amazing.
Yeah. So, I was really lucky to learn that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like you were hanging out with some very cool people. And you were at Patagonia for a long time. And I was like browsing your website and some of the things like being a part of their push in sustainability in the clothing. That all sounded really cool.
Yeah, so I was with Patagonia for 12 years from 2012 until 2024, and I got to be part of some of the biggest enviro and sustainability launches. I what a product line manager is, we kind of own that business, and so we kind of set up what's called a line plan, which is like the products you're going to sell in your category. And then while I was there, there were like my first big initiative. The first season I ever created clothing was to launch fair trade apparel for just fair trade apparel. It had been done with coffee, but it had never been done in apparel. And there was only one factory that was fair trade certified. It was a knit factory in India. And so they specialized in women's knits. So I got to launch the first yoga collection for women that was fair trade certified.
So
And that was really cool.
what does fair trade mean exactly? I mean, I kind of loosely associate it with it's like it's good, but like what does that really mean?
So fair trade is what it does is it's like a supplement for workers that bridges the gap between what their salary is paying and kind of the living wage that they need. And that is like really broad, loose terms. I don't have it like, the exact definition written down in front of me or memorized right now since I haven't done a talk in a while, but it really bridges that gap. So what it would do is like it gives a Patagonia puts in extra money that goes into a fund. It's like a team that actually decides how they want to use the money. And that money could be used as a stipend for themselves. It could be used to buy supplies. We've had factories like the workers want to buy bikes so that they can ride their bikes to and from work, or they want to buy rainwear for the rainy season, or even things like putting in a child care so that women can bring their children to work. So it creates this extra fund that's a pool of money that then the workers have the ability to decide how they want to use it that benefits the entire workforce. And so it's like a really, really cool program. And it's scaled so rampantly that so many businesses support. And so it's just been really amazing that I was part of that like little seed that has blossomed, and like some of those stories coming from especially like the female workers and the way it's changed their lives, it really, like, just warms my heart and something I'm exceptionally proud of and so thankful that Patagonia led the charge there to do that and that so many other businesses adopted that program.
That's so interesting. So it's basically coming from the factory in a sense, like the factory says we're going to offer this program and then whoever contracts with the factory then knows that they're going to pay like some percentage or whatever more on what they're ordering.
Yes, sort of like that. So to get the factory certified, the business and the factory has to go through the certification process, which is expensive. So the factory, like, well, just brands, we want to partner with the factory and be like, okay, we can help you support this certification because it's expensive to get it started. And, or at least it was. This was, me launching that program was over a decade ago. So obviously programs can change. But once it was in place, what we wanted to prove was like, oh, this can help. Customers won't mind paying a little bit extra knowing that it goes to the factory workers if we're telling the story the right way. And we have proven that case. And that is where other businesses are like, yeah, we'd love to support. Once the factory has been fair trade certified, then it's up to the business to say, yes, we'd like to contribute to that fair trade certification and pay into that fund that the workers will use. And again, forgive me, and I, recommend everyone looking into like fair trade. I didn't read it right before we got on the call, so I'm not sure if the program has changed in the past, 5 years.
No, that's okay. I mean, I think it's just interesting to think about how it was. I mean, some of the Patagonia pieces that I have, I bought, 10 years ago. So this would be
Yeah.
kind of in that era. But is it weird that I have now become so cynical to like feel like the question that comes up to me is like, but are they really getting that money? Like, that sounds really nice, oh, they wanted bicycles and there's this fund of money that they can buy bicycles, but it's crazy that now I just like feel like any of those labels are just it's just marketing and it's not real. I mean, is that me just being overly negative?
No, I think everyone should really dig into, like, is what they're telling me true? And we don't all have time, right? Because so there are, you know, companies that do greenwash. It happens. It's out there. Some of them know they're doing it. Some are, they just don't have the resources, don't realize that what the factories told them is not correct. I think the fair trade certification, third party certification, has such a well established like reputation that I do put full trust. And because I got to be in the same room with some of the workers and the representative, and you see the human and you hear the stories, and then we go visit the factories, you can see a big difference between those factories and other. But I am like you in that I don't trust hardly anything that I hear until I investigate it myself. And, to be fully frank, on our first fair trade certified factory was fantastic until it wasn't. And then there was a time where we no longer worked with that factory for other things that were found out later that were different from the fair trade. So you constantly, I think, a responsible company has to be going to the factory, talking with the factory, and like doing audits, biannually or at least annually. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That sounds good. I'm sure that yeah, there's probably some of both.
Yeah.
There are some that are doing the right thing and then there's others that are trying to but not all the way and then there's probably others that are just like, "Oh, people like it. Say that we're doing this, so we're going to
Yeah.
say that."
I will say from, because I had a really high level job, just below senior leadership at Patagonia, that they every place has issues, right? They don't no place is perfect, but they really do strive to take care of the environment and to take care of their factory workers. And they still do things that I don't agree with, and I don't agree with everything that the Chenards stand for, but I still appreciate that they sincerely do their best to, like, protect the environment and to protect their factory workers and really, most of their employees. I was laid off, so I have issues with them on some things, but I'm like, talking about wanting to make the world as best a place as they can within manufacturing apparel. They sincerely wanna do that.
That's good. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
nobody's perfect, and I know at Serve with Amigos, even us, in our mission, it's like you have your values in the right place, and sometimes you have to make decisions that it's like, okay, how do we navigate this? Because it's not just an easy decision to make. So I'm sure that there a lot is going into all of their decision making process. Being such a huge company, I mean, Patagonia
Yeah.
is massive.
Yeah, they are, and, so I think they always really try to do the best and most responsible thing that they can.
It's good.
Yeah.
I love my Patagonia bags for sure.
The
Uh,
bags are fantastic, right? That's like a
yeah,
perfect, like, if you're going on a surf trip, go get a yeah, black hole duffel.
absolutely, a best in
Yeah,
class, I would say.
I
But
agree.
eventually, I couldn't remember because I knew you had told me the story of ending your relationship with them, but I couldn't remember what exactly had happened. I thought that you had left on your own accord.
Yeah. No, I was reorged in October, and that year they had a series of, I wanna say, 3 different rounds of layoffs. Some was the, wholesale force, some were with the Patagonia Provisions, and then they did some in the main office, and, sadly, that's when my role ended at the end of October in 2024, and it was heartbreaking. I mean, I've said this on anyone who's seen my Instagram for my, job. It was like, when you have a really good boyfriend, they break up and you're like, "What happened? I thought things were going so good." So it was like well, I like to say, what a privilege to say that that was my biggest heartbreak. That's the hardest thing I had to deal with in life, then what a privilege my life is, and that is such a privileged problem because they did take care of me, and they set me up in a way that I've been able to do what I'm doing now.
Right. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I think it's important to mention, but I want to transition into what you are doing now because you have started your own apparel and specifically swim apparel. Can you want to talk about that? Like how long did it take you to like is this something that you had been incubating while you were still at Patagonia or dreaming about, or was it sort of an all of a sudden now I have the time to do this thing that I didn't really realize I was going to do?
I didn't really realize I was going to do it. To be honest, I looked for jobs after Patagonia and I actually got a few really nice prospects, but they all required me to relocate very far away. And my kids at the time were like junior and seniors in high school, and I didn't want to have to make them move. And I fell in love with Ventura. And we're so lucky I live like 10 minutes from the ocean. And it was my husband that I think it was in December. I was like, what am I going to do? I just can't find a job here, and I love it here. And he's like, well, you're always complaining. I did complain about sometimes the way women were portrayed at Patagonia in media, and you love building product for women. And I was no longer at the surf team when I left Patagonia only because the women's life outdoor category was so huge. But I miss surf so much because my favorite product to build is functional swimwear for women. And he's like, "You've wanted to do this, you have a passion for it." He's like, Just do it." And he's like, "YOLO." And I just started laughing because I was like, "I don't think you know how hard it is to start a business." And I'm really good at supporting big businesses and executing their ideas. And he's like, "Well, we only get one opportunity, and what if you make this work?" And we're able to have time to do the sports we love, but also you're able to tell the story about women and the lineup and surfers that you want to tell. And yeah, it was his overconfidence in me, or confidence, I don't that I like gave me the confidence in myself to be like, okay, I can try this because I've made clothing. Can I figure this out to do it for myself? And I was lucky I was given a severance package that I could invest into that. And that is how I started building. Like, we had a little small collection last year and got more surf suits this year. And so much of it is built off of just wanting to build like something that's simple and classic, that's not like stringy or with cutouts, but you don't have to fidget or fuss with when you're in the water. And there is tons of swimwear out there in the world, but I still struggle to find kind of what I wanted. And I'm like, well, maybe if I'm struggling, maybe other women, especially my age, are as well. Because being late 40s, very, very late 40s, I'm like, don't want something like super sexy or thong, but at the same time, I don't want something so full coverage. And I just want to go outside and surf for a long time and feel confident in my surf apparel so I can concentrate on my surfing.
Yeah, I love that, and being not quite as late, but getting into the later stages of 40s, I agree with that. I'm not really down to wear the thong, but yeah, I wanna be able to be cute in my swimwear, but also feel, like, not overly exposed. But, I when you mentioned that you weren't super stoked on the way that women were being portrayed in surfing, like, what specifically? Because I got kind of, like I'm not like paying super close attention to what Patagonia is doing specifically, but I sort of felt like compared to some of the other brands that they were doing a better job. So what was it about the way they were doing it that you thought could be improved upon?
Okay, so this is more my personal interpretation of when we were building things, Patagonia does a really good job of like, they want everything what they consider very authentic, but almost sometimes to the detriment of what I saw in the lineup. And so what that kind of entailed is I still see women who go out and they wear jewelry and they might have mascara on and they might even have their nails done. And that was like a hard no, could not portray that because private brand that has their look, that's what a successful brand does. They have their look, they have who they're building product for. And so I was like, you know what? I'm seeing these women that are on Surf with Amigos retreats or in Hawaii, and they're actually like really cute with makeup and they have nails and they like actually think about how I'm putting together my surfboard and does my suit match and does my towel match? And I was like, I don't mind showing the cute and the pretty side. There was that part of it. And then the other part is a lot of brands are not showing women again in that late 50s, even 60s and 70s as their models. And if you're on my site, I have a couple of models that are mid 50s that rip. And I wanted to be able to show like there's a lot of women. And I have my dream of having more older women. So anyone listening, I really want to show that there is like this crazy cool set of women out there going on these Surf of the Amigas trips, going on their own surfer trips, chasing waves, and they're not defined by like, oh, over 40 now. I need to really stop this. They're like, oh, now I'm over 40. And if they had children, they might be empty nesters. And now I have the time or the disposable income to travel and to catch waves and to surf. And like, where's the apparel for us? So I'm like, here.
As you say
Yeah.
that, I know what you mean. I feel like my image, like, when I think of Patagonia and again, like, I haven't really paid attention so much lately, but, like, back then, it was very I don't even know how to say it, like, it was super sporty. It was like so I get what you're saying that, like, because I think when you talk about how women are portrayed, I was like, "What are you talking about?" Because I think so many of the other brands, it wasn't the sporty, so it
Yeah.
was almost like Patagonia, like, went
Yes.
like, they were trying to correct, but they went, like, too far.
Yes.
And it was, like, the longer board shorts or, like, the very not al almost like taking a male product and making it smaller and, like, different colors versus having it be, like, super feminine, so, yeah, that makes sense. So it sounds like you've had, it's called Coastal Range, right?
Yes.
That
Coastal Range.
for a year and a half? Question mark?
Yes, I started selling apparel, in October 2024, but I had to start setting everything up to sell in January. So I got my LLC, and then I had my first batch of swimwear come in October, which is not ideal time to launch a swimwear brand, but actually California is the warmest time of the year, so it's fine for California. And my goal with Coastal Range was to be a place where women could find swim sweats layers. And the reason being, just like Ventura is so cold. And I didn't want to dive into wetsuits right away. I wanted kind of a proof of concept before I built wetsuits. Wetsuits are one of the hardest margin items in a surf business. So it was more like, okay, I need to really prove to myself that I can build a women's surf brand. And so I started with the things I knew. And the designer from that used to be with work with me at Patagonia, she had retired. So she actually designed the sweats and the fleece. And then the swimwear I designed myself. I like to say with crayons because I don't have a design degree, but I knew what I wanted. And yeah, that's where I am. And I've launched the layers and the sweats and some of the swim, and I'm still developing some new things because I want to take the brand even more technical with some protection and water shorts. Just when you're starting small, you can't do everything at once, but I have some really fun things in development. And my goal is to like be pretty technical and have pieces for women that are even more technical than my swimwear and my sweats so that I don't think people are building those technical products specifically for women in a women's kind of brand where it's a lot of times it's like, okay, go get the hooded rash guard from the men's brand and buy yourself a small. And it's like, wait, but they're really long still. Or buy the board short. And there's only like one board short for women. So I just have this vision of this brand where I can just be true to building stuff just for women that want to spend a lot of time in the water.
Love it.
Yeah,
Yeah. So what part of the process has been, I don't know, maybe I mean, obviously starting a business and especially a swimwear business where there's a lot of small women who have that similar story of like, "Oh, I couldn't find what appealed to me, so I'm starting my own thing." Like, what
absolutely.
about that process has been, I don't know, harder than you expected, or are there things that you thought were going to be really hard that actually turned out to not be that hard? What's the
Uh,
process been like?
the hardest part for me on the process so far is I think I came into it a little bit naive about how quickly women would find the brand. I've had the benefit working with Patagonia, but previous to that, I was with a really well-known outdoor brand. So I've always supported these brands that have been established for over 40 years. And so one thing I have a lot of confidence is making good product. I feel like that is my strength. I know how to make things that are really high quality, nice, fit well. But if no one can find them because I'm doing e-commerce only and direct to consumer and I'm looking at social media and I do not want to do a TikTok dance, it's like, how do they find the brand? And that is something that I was like, wow, having people find my brand is a lot harder than I expected. And the product side of it, I would say, for the most part, has been a lot easier than I thought it would be, because just things have been a lot more smooth on that side, and that's kind of what my main area of focus has always been with brands, so that felt really good, but, yeah, getting people to find my brand has been the hardest part, and it's improving, but I have a long way to go, for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure that that is challenging if you don't wanna do the TikTok dances.
I
So
totally
what is,
don't.
like there's, like, I don't know, there's trade shows, but I guess trade shows are more if you want to go the retail route. So, like, how do you do it? What do they do these days? Like, partner with influencers? Or, I mean, you're here talking to us, so that's helpful. And you guys are gonna
I
know about it.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that some amigas will hear about it, but, yeah, I've been doing some affiliate marketing, and I am gonna go wholesale. Like I said, I wanted to have a kind of a proof of concept and have a more broad line, which took a little bit just the way I'm doing it from, like, bootstrapping everything a little bit longer. But the goal would be to be in some stores that are in my mind, I'm thinking of small surf specialty, that especially there's a few of those that are kind of more geared towards women. And then, uh, there's a few other women's mid-size, I'd say, brands that have approached me that are like, "Okay, we're ready." Because of my experience at Patagonia, I would sell those product lines, and so I've had a few inquiries from bigger places like, "Hey, we're ready when you're ready." And so it's me getting myself ready to sell to something bigger and deciding I wanted to invest the money for that. But
Right,
then
because
it would be
at that
wholesale,
point
so trade shows. Yeah,
you have to, like, invest the money into, like, starting the process of making all of the stuff so that if people buy it, that you're ready to ship it?
exactly. So I bought everything just hitting MOQs, that's the minimum order quantities, just to begin to see, okay, like, how am I selling? And it has worked great. When I show up to surf contests, I'll, like, do sponsor, like, the Cove Classic here in Ventura. I'm getting ready to do Queen of the Point in Malibu, um, and I'm gonna do the whole Queen of the Point series aside from the Shargao one they just ran, and so when I show up and women can touch and feel the product, it's so much better. I usually have really good sales because 'cause they're like, "Oh, it's real life. I can touch it. I can see it." So my goal is to get into wholesale stores, so the investment part is, borrowing enough to say, okay, I have these brands that are interested and I can trust that they're going to purchase this much. So now I could borrow to buy that inventory and then sell it. That's what's scary for me, but that's where I'm getting to right now.
Yeah, so how do you kind of work through that fear? Because that is a big step to, like, take out a loan to invest in this thing.
Yeah. I'm in the process. We'll have to do a follow-up in a year and a half. Yeah, because it is, like, scary, but I think that, I've been lucky that, I've saved a lot throughout the years of my career, and so I have enough, and I probably wouldn't borrow more than what I could cover if things didn't do well. So I guess that in some ways is still being very reserved and conservative on my bets, right?
Yeah, but I mean, not to, like, make you fearful. I just, like, it's like if you are betting on yourself essentially
Yeah.
and like you could just, like, hang out and foil, but you're like, "No, I'm gonna do this thing and I'm gonna believe in myself." So, like, how do you get? Because I know a lot of people have these ideas or maybe they start
Mhm.
out and they do a little bit, but just to take that jump to the next level requires belief, and I don't know, how do you when the little voices in your heads are arguing about, "Is this a good idea or not, or am I ready?" Like, how do you talk through that?
So financially, I write it out on paper and making sure the math works. And I have been buying and selling and creating product for 25 years. So I I do have a level of confidence and certainty in my ability to predict trends. And so like also I know how margin works and I know like okay, if I'm selling this board short for this much and this is the cost of goods sold and I'm going to do this much for wholesale and this much DTC and I want to spend this much doing that math to show what it looks like, and be like, "Okay, is this a wise decision or not?" is kind of my process. It's not guaranteed, but it is saying, "Okay, you've been, 90% right in your career making these bets. You're just doing it now with your own money." And so there is that 10%. I've messed up. I've made some really ugly products like Patagonia in the past 10, 12 years, but 90% of them were really good. So, um, yeah, having that, doing the math, there's that, and then I'm just really lucky, like I said, I my husband is, like, incredibly, he believes in me more than I ever believe in myself. I don't know why, but he is like, "We can't take this money with us." So, yes, we need to save, and you need to, like, kinda do the math on, general life expectancy and being able to live, at least responsibly, but we can't take it with us. And he also reminds me like the only ones who kind of have the big reward are the people who take the big risk. And so if we never take the big risk, we won't know. So I could get a job just with a company and that would feel very comfortable and safe. And I tell you daily, I want to go back to feeling comfortable and safe. Um, and, uh, he just reminds me like we only have so much time and, you've had this background of being able to do this. I don't see why you wouldn't think you can do it now.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah, yeah, I'm lucky. He's out there actually editing a video for me for later today. He's my first unpaid employee.
Yes, epic. Do you ever see yourself making menswear? Because Coastal Range, it's, like, such a cool, like, brand and logo and name that it doesn't limit you to women.
Oh, yeah, I 100% picked that name, brand, and logo because I was like, I would like to do men's eventually. Board short tees, sun protection, but I wanted to start with building something just for the women using all my technical background. But yeah, it was very calculated. I'm very proud of my naming. I've named a lot of big franchises at Patagonia in my past, and that's one of the things that I'm like, okay, let's get this name right. It can't be too girly.
Right. Yeah, no, and it's one of those where it's, like, easy to remember and yet kind of general at the same time. Like, is it hard to when you got to that process of figuring out the name to make sure that, no one else was using it and it was gonna be not I don't know, that it was that people were gonna get what it was, but also not have it be too basic? Question mark?
Yeah, so when I came to the name, I wanted something that lent itself to being between the ocean and the mountains because at first I really wasn't ready to let go of all the outdoor apparel I've built. And I'm still like want to dabble in fleece because my core competency was all the fleece I built for Patagonia. I'm a little bit torn on it environmentally if I want to do much of it. So the one fleece I ran was actually headed to the landfill, so it was repurposed. So when I was doing it, I was like somewhere between the mountains and ocean and cold weather, coastal, brands. And then I just thought of the Pacific Northwest and the mountain range, coastal range up there, or coast range, that beautiful mountain range up around Oregon and Washington. And I was like, that is perfect. And then I'm from South Carolina. My family loves to, especially a lot of my cousins love to hunt, skeet shoot, and that sort of thing, hunting for food. And I was like, I really like the range part too, like lending itself to being a little bit somewhere between the mountains, but it could mean a lot of things. And yeah, I felt like that was like perfectly embodied the lifestyle I kind of live and came from between the outdoors and the ocean.
Cool. I love it. You're such a great storyteller. I appreciate hearing all about your process and thought
Yeah.
process.
let's talk about some of the influence that Surf with Amigas.
Okay,
Honestly,
perfect. Tell me.
this it is the exposure of these retreats that is what really drove me to want to build more for women. Um, so like I said, I sent you my first email in 2020 and you recommended, I think, a retreat in Nicaragua and Costa Rica because at that time Surf with Amigas wasn't running Indonesia retreats. And I got sent to Uluwatu to work on swimwear with Belinda Bags in 2019. It was a Jerry Lopez kind of surf with Jerry retreat. And I really fell in love with Indonesia. And I fell in love with also like the story of how um, the surf breaks were developed in Indonesia. And so when, you know, we went into COVID, I couldn't do a Surf with Amigas retreat. As soon as you advertised an Indonesia retreat, I was like, I want to be there. And I remember at the time I was looking for Indonesia retreats because I had read all these well, not read books, but I'd seen movies like Morning of the Earth and Sea of Darkness about kind of how the surf breaks were developed in Indonesia and these surf camps and these health camps from all these men. And I felt like Surf with Amigas was the first place that was doing a women's one. I feel like you were kind of ahead of your time doing the Indo surf retreat. Maybe they were happening. They were never across my feed. So as soon as you kind of advertised one. I was like, I want in. I want to go on this. And yeah, I was on that first group that went to Roti. And I felt like that particular location really just spoke to me. And it was such a special season because we got a lot of swell that year. It was 2022, and it was kind of touch and go right up to the last minute if we were going to be able to get into Indonesia. I don't know if you remember that. I just today saw all these long emails from you about how we are gonna get in. And anyway, went to Roti, fell in love. The staff you have there, the location, the local staff that's at that retreat. It is my favorite place. If I could go every single year, I'd go to that one. Um, and I was like, I think I've became so felt in love with the idea of women's surf retreats and women's community and learning together and going to these faraway places. That just like did something in my core where I was just like, I can never leave the surf industry. I was like, I've got to be part of this, has to be my community forever. And also why I could not leave Ventura. And so I did that retreat and I went 3 years in a row to Roti. And then last year I did Sumatra and you actually were there during that time. And I just being with the women, being out there in the ocean for a long time, I really wanted to create more product that like the girls are out there feeling good, they look great, and they want to stay out in the water longer. So how long can we, do it till the tide messes us up or the wind? Yeah, that's
Awesome.
yeah,
What about
yeah.
I mean, you mentioned the staff and all of that, but what about Roti in particular made you fall in love with it?
So the first season we were there, we got a great swell. And I want to say on the big day, it was like just at my level of like where it was right before it was too big. And so, one, it was the wave itself, that it's like the most beautiful, and if you catch it during a swell, biggest left hand that goes the furthest I've ever been, with also a semi-soft landing when you eat poo-poo and hit. And, I think how remote it is really spoke to me. And then the people there are just like the locals are so genuinely welcoming and kind. And there's Melfi and Sarah, and they're preparing breakfast and lunch, and they're always there to welcome you, and they're so kind. And Greg and his wife, who run the retreat location, Nimbarella, are so welcoming, so kind. And so just that, like, being so far remote and having just like such welcoming people and then having the most beautiful left hand big wave that's a point break, let me say. Did not do so well on beach breaks in Sumatra, but I love that location.
Awesome. I know one thing that we get asked a lot is kind of about like levels. People are like, I don't know if I'm an advanced beginner or an intermediate or an advanced surfer. And we have at Surf with Amigas, we have shied away from labels. Like if you look at other surf camps, they have these like clearly defined like level 1 or level 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
And we've intentionally not really bought into that because there's so many different things. It's like how long you've been surfing and what skills you've mastered versus just like your attitude or your willingness to like send it. You might not have been surfing very long or have all these skills, but if you're willing to send it, then you might fit better into a group than someone who's been surfing for 30 years and can do all the tricks but doesn't like a wave over waist high. You know what I mean? So it's a common thing that people think, oh, Indo reef break, like that's not for me. What would you say to that? Or like somebody thinking, oh, I don't know if I'm good enough to travel all the way to Indonesia to surf a reef break. What has been your experience?
First, all over Indonesia, there's all levels. And so, like, I would tell anyone, no matter your level, you can surf in Indonesia. There's somewhere to surf. This particular retreat, Roti, I feel like when I'm a timid learner and I'm a shoulder hopper sometimes. So this wave is perfect for maybe someone who has a really strong foundation in, their surfing, but because it is a long left-hander, someone like myself that has a little bit slower on the pop-up, I have a lot of runway to work with, which I loved about that wave. I think with Roti, the only thing is just like being very or just knowing how to get out of people's way because there's people coming out of the way. That being said, I've never, even when it was crowded there, it was never really, really crowded. But I do think you have to be aware of like just having the skill set to be able to like get out of the way. It is a point break, so there's very large shoulder and channel, so there's a lot of space to get out of the way. You can sit wide and you can wait for wide swingers. I think it is the most gentle big wave I've ever had. So I feel like if you're, let's say, an advanced beginner to beginning immediate or a lower immediate, this is a great place to challenge yourself. That being said, there's also like Squealers, which is a much more beginner friendly, and you can always the team always like, ask the group, where would you like to go? But I think if you're like feeling like this is the time you want to challenge yourself, if there's swell, I think that is the most forgiving big wave I've ever been on. And I've surfed a lot of different places in Hawaii and Indonesia and California. Those are like my areas. But I've never had such a forgiving big wave. Like, yes, you you still get caught up in whitewash, but generally speaking, the reef is covered in like some algae, so it's not as sharp. It's kind of like flat. And uh, of everywhere I've ever surfed, to be able to try something that's overhead, that is the nicest place to try it.
Epic. Great.
Yeah.
I haven't been. I really want to go and hearing you talk about it and our team is there right now. Actually, I've been getting the reports of how the waves have been and the different adventures that they've had. But so yeah, it's like definitely fresh in my mind of like, okay, maybe next year make it out there.
Yeah. I mean, if you can hit it like yourself, Holly, on like during a big swell, like you can get really, really big, beautiful waves, and it just makes this face that goes. You can just turn and turn and turn and turn. Um, I just haven't ever experienced something so clean anywhere else. However, I went the one year there was absolutely no swell, and Megan has said that was her hardest retreat she ever worked.
Right,
And
because
so,
there was a bunch of frothers that week.
yes, there
Yeah,
to
because
go on boat
like
rides.
with some groups, it's like if the waves were small, people would still be stoked. I mean, everybody wants waves, of course, but like some
Yeah.
groups are feared than others. And like Gabby is a charger and she does not like to sit still. So unless it's in an ice bath for 15 minutes.
Yes. I love and that's what another thing I love about Surf with Amigas is meeting people that then I'm meeting with everywhere. Like, it is amazing to, like, create these friendships and then set up trips again together, and, yeah, I love that about your retreats, that you just bring women together, and then we go to one location, go to another location, or go I have a bunch of women, they're like, "Let's all go back to Rhody again next year because it's such a
Epic.
fun retreat."
Well, we're
Yeah.
stoked to have you as part of the community, and for all of the community members that are out there listening, if you want to support a female-owned brand with really nice products, you gotta find Coastal Range and tell all your friends.
Yes, please. Look for us. We're on Instagram, Coastal Range CO. Um, yeah, and Coastal Range Collective. The website is Coastal Range
Yeah,
Collective, but come look
we
for us.
will, we'll link to all of the things in, the whatever you call it, the caption, the however yeah, all the things, the Instagram and the website and all of that. But thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your story.